Breaking from Buckingham. Palace confirms elite royal guard rejects. Camilla's request swears loyalty to Princess Catherine. Buckingham Palace issued a quiet but firm confirmation today. Lieutenant Colonel Jonathan Thompson, the former senior bodyguard to Queen Elizabeth II, has formally accepted a permanent role as personal aide-de-camp and royal guardian to the Princess of Wales, Catherine. This move, though not dressed in royal fanfare, lands like a thunderclap across the palace walls, for what makes the decision historic is not just the appointment, but the rejection that preceded it. Sources inside the palace confirm that the position was first offered and expected to be accepted by Queen Camilla during her recent private birthday banquet, where she sought to install Thompson as her visible symbol of continuity and power. Instead, Thompson declined her proposal in a move that insiders are already calling a royal refusal with political teeth. Why would the Queen's most loyal bodyguard walk away? And why now? Stay with us as we unpack the deep strategy, political undercurrents, and symbolic warfare of this quiet coup. If you care about the future of the monarchy, this isn't a story you can afford to scroll past. Comment below, who do you think is truly carrying the Queen's legacy? On the surface, the scene could have passed for any royal celebration. An opulent room glowing with chandeliers, a toast raised to Queen Camilla on her birthday, and a guest list of Britain's most elite dignitaries. But beneath the elegance was a calculated move and a brewing power play. Sources present at the banquet reveal that Camilla, riding high on her increasing public profile, issued a public request during her toast. In it, she subtly yet unmistakably proposed that Lieutenant Colonel Jonathan Thompson, famed for his composed demeanor and deep connection to Queen Elizabeth, take up a formal role as her personal royal guardian. This, to many in the room, was seen as Camilla's latest move to reinforce her claim to more than just ceremonial power, a visual message that she, not Catherine, was the true female head of the monarchy in the post-Elizabethan era. But what followed was nothing short of seismic. Jonathan Thompson, known as the Queen's Shadow, and once described as the physical embodiment of quiet loyalty, politely but unequivocally declined. Instead, he announced that his service, his loyalty, would be aligned solely with Princess Catherine, the woman he believes carries the light and legacy of Queen Elizabeth II. What looked like a minor staffing adjustment is now being decoded by royal watchers as a thunderous political act, because in the royal realness, who guards you speaks for who you are. Let's be clear, this is not just about protection. The position of personal aide-de-camp to a senior royal, especially someone like Thompson, who held Queen Elizabeth's trust, is a symbolic extension of legitimacy, continuity, and respect. In choosing Catherine, Thompson is sending a signal. The moral and emotional inheritance of the Queen is not with Camilla. Regardless of title, it is with Catherine. In refusing Camilla, he quietly challenged her growing attempts to reframe her role as the spiritual successor to Elizabeth. Royal experts note that this is a rare but powerful form of soft resistance, a way for royal insiders to express dissent without rebellion. And for Thompson, it's a career-defining decision. When a man like Thompson speaks through action, it ripples louder than a press release, says Dr. Evelyn Roke, historian of British monarchy symbolism. He just told the world who the real queen in waiting is, and it isn't the one with the title. Oh, one might expect drama, reaction, or at least political maneuvering from Princess Catherine. Instead, her reaction was classic Windsor discipline. She offered no comment, no boast, no change in behavior. She accepted Thompson's loyalty with the same quiet poise that has become her signature. But make no mistake, this is not submission, it's strategy. By not reacting, Catherine keeps herself above court gossip and personal pettiness. By letting others speak for her, she positions herself as the gravitational center, a leader not chasing power, but being chosen for it. Palace insiders describe her demeanor during the banquet as serene, unbothered, and surprisingly gracious, even as Camilla publicly angled for dominance. A witness described the moment Thompson made his declaration. The room held its breath. Catherine didn't flinch. That's when I knew who held the real authority. To understand the magnitude of this moment, we must consider Queen Camilla's recent positioning. Since the death of Queen Elizabeth, Camilla has moved deliberately to redefine herself not just as a consort, but as an active monarch in ceremonial, social, and institutional spaces. She's expanded her presence at official events, increased patronages, and even subtly adopted mannerisms associated with Elizabeth II. Offering the role of royal bodyguard to Thompson was not a spontaneous gesture. It was a move in a larger campaign. But this latest incident reveals the limits of power through titles. Camilla may hold the crown, but she lacks what Elizabeth commanded effortlessly, the organic loyalty of those around her. The rejection wasn't just a personal embarrassment. It was a message to the establishment that legacy, like trust, cannot be inherited. It must be earned. In royal life, there are two kinds of power. Hard power, the crown, the titles, the hierarchy. Soft power, the loyalty of the people, the respect of insiders, and the inheritance of legacy. Camilla, by law, holds hard power as queen, but Thompson's rejection proves that Catherine is amassing soft power at a historic rate. That's the kind of power Elizabeth II wielded, and the kind that truly defines monarchies in the modern world. And now, with Thompson perhaps the most visible living link to Queen Elizabeth declaring allegiance, the monarchy's emotional and moral weight has shifted. Catherine isn't just waiting in the wings. She's already leading from within. Lieutenant Colonel Jonathan Thompson's decision to publicly align himself with Catherine, Princess of Wales, was not born in a vacuum. As Part 1 revealed, his rejection of Queen Camilla's offer was shocking, but in this installment, we go deeper into why it happened. Behind that decision lies a series of private moments, whispered directives, and legacy planning orchestrated by Queen Elizabeth II in her final years. Insiders close to the Queen now confirm that as early as 2020, she had already begun to outline the roles of her most trusted aides in a post-Elizabeth era. At the heart of this preparation was one unmistakable belief: Catherine, not Camilla, would carry the monarchy's moral center forward. And to support her, the Queen entrusted her most silent weapon, Jonathan Thompson. The monarchy doesn't just survive on bloodlines, the Queen reportedly told Thompson during a private meeting in Windsor. It survives on judgment, and Catherine must not walk this path alone. These were not ceremonial words. They were a strategic passing of the torch. Jonathan Thompson was more than a palace ornament in uniform. With a career forged in the Royal Regiment of Scotland, and years spent navigating the pressures of proximity to the monarch, he became not just a protector but a witness to power, to temperament, to patterns of leadership. During a poignant walk through the halls of Windsor Castle, the Queen pointed to a portrait of herself as a young monarch. "That was the age I began to understand that kindness must be firm," she said, according to Thompson. Catherine has that same light. The Queen saw in Catherine not just potential, but a resemblance to her younger self, thrown into duty, underestimated by many, but guided by a deep moral compass. And she knew Catherine would need not just allies, but anchors. One story that shaped Thompson's loyalty began not in a ballroom, but on a muddy training field. During an informal visit to inspect the logistics of a ceremonial rehearsal, Catherine noticed several guards discreetly adjusting their posture. When she asked why, one hesitantly admitted that the issued shoes caused swelling and discomfort during long marches. Catherine didn't nod politely and move on. She took notes. She asked for the supplier. And within weeks, she had quietly worked with military procurement to adjust the internal lining and arch support for ceremonial footwear. It was a small thing to her, Thompson recalled. But to the men standing for hours in rain and ceremony, it changed everything. This was the moment that confirmed what Queen Elizabeth had long believed. Catherine understood the invisible weight of service. Camilla, by contrast, has been described by palace aides as dismissive of lower ranks, often requiring protocol, but rarely remembering names or personal details. To a man like Thompson, trained to observe, to protect, and to serve with honor, character mattered more than crown. What Thompson's decision exposes is the fundamental divide in today's royal ecosystem. Queen Camilla holds ceremonial authority, but her legitimacy remains debated. Princess Catherine, though not crowned, commands respect through acts, not edicts. It's the difference between holding a throne and holding a nation's trust. In interviews following Queen Elizabeth's passing, several former aides acknowledged that the late Queen deliberately distanced her legacy from Camilla's image, instead grooming Catherine through exposure, responsibility, and behind-the-scenes mentorship. Thompson's alignment is not rebellion. It is execution of a long-orchestrated plan. "We don't speak of succession in emotional terms," one senior aide noted. But Thompson's move? That was the Queen's final chess piece. As Catherine steps into more senior duties leading initiatives on mental health, early childhood, and military families, Thompson is always nearby. But his presence isn't ornamental, it's structural. He is not just protecting a person, he is guarding a legacy. This new alliance is changing the palace dynamic in real time. Catherine is appearing more frequently without Charles or Camilla. Thompson is now leading logistics, normally reserved for higher-ranking royals. Public perception continues to shift. With every coordinated engagement, more Britons and Commonwealth citizens view Catherine as the rightful torchbearer. Camilla may wear the crown, but Catherine is wearing the future. It was meant to be a glittering evening of diplomatic decorum. The Buckingham Palace State Banquet, hosted in honor of a visiting head of state, featured everything from gold-rimmed china to a symphony orchestra tucked behind velvet drapes. But what unfolded that night wasn't just ceremony, it was strategy. Observers say that beneath the gleam of crystal chandeliers, a quiet storm swirled. At the heart of it, Queen Camilla, Princess Catherine, and Lieutenant Colonel Jonathan Thompson. The trio rarely appeared in one frame, but when they did, the subtext was thunderous. Guests recall a moment just before the second course, when Queen Camilla approached the head table, flanked by aides. Her gown shimmered, her crown sat tall, and she looked every inch the queen. But what caught attention was her lingering glance toward Catherine, already seated and engaged with the visiting dignitary. Then came the twist. Jonathan Thompson, standing with military poise behind the royal procession, subtly stepped aside to allow Catherine's exit from the conversation, only to resume position directly at her shoulder. Not Camilla's. This visual captured in several press shots and replayed endlessly on TikTok, and royal forums spoke volumes. It was a body language masterclass, noted etiquette analyst Simone Forrester. He made his allegiance known without a single word. What the public saw as a subtle gesture was, according to insiders, deliberately choreographed. Palace sources confirm that Queen Camilla had privately requested that Thompson rotate between her side and Catherine's during the evening, a gesture meant to suggest shared importance. But Thompson, with quiet resolve, refused the alternating role, informing the master of ceremonies he would remain exclusively in service of the Princess of Wales for the duration of the event. This decision upended months of image planning from Camilla's PR advisors. Instead of appearing as co-equals in status, the room perceived a more powerful narrative. Catherine as the stable axis around which the evening turned. Social media ignited within minutes. A slow-motion clip shared by a royal fan account, at Windsor Whispers, amassed 2.7 million views overnight. In it, Camilla glances at Thompson. He offers a formal nod, then turns away to hand Catherine a folded program. "That look," read the caption. Camilla, realizing she lost the only man who mattered in the room tonight. Thousands of comments poured in. She looked furious in pearls. Catherine didn't win him. She earned him. This was Queen Elizabeth's checkmate move from beyond the grave. What would have gone unnoticed a year ago became a royal Rorschach. Everyone saw something symbolic in the glances, glides, and gestures. While Camilla leaned into pageantry, Catherine leaned into presence. She gave full attention to visiting ministers. She asked about their initiatives. She made space for junior palace staff to be acknowledged. And while Thompson ensured her path was smooth, he remained unobtrusive, the invisible arm of quiet strength. This wasn't the display of dominance Camilla had envisioned. It was the ascendancy of relevance. Royal photographer Lucien Parlow described the evening best. Camilla was lit by chandeliers. Catherine was lit by intention. The next morning, palace staff reported a noticeably tense atmosphere in Queen Camilla's wing. Multiple sources cited frustration over social media misinterpretations of the banquet seating and staffing. Unofficially, however, several senior aides to King Charles III are said to have praised Catherine's handling of the night, calling it a turning point in the public imagination of the monarchy's future. And Thompson? He returned to duty the next day, as if nothing had happened, unshaken, composed, and at Catherine's side during a children's hospice visit. The contrast was humbling, a volunteer said. One night in gold and politics. Next, quietly kneeling to comfort a 6-year-old. What happened at the banquet wasn't accidental. It was a visible transfer of cultural legitimacy. In public, Queen Camilla holds the crown. But Catherine, backed by the loyalty of someone like Jonathan Thompson, holds the credibility of continuity. And the monarchy, in its 1,000-year wisdom, has always known which of those truly matters. This was more than a dinner. It was a coronation in the language of gestures. In the days following Lieutenant Colonel Jonathan Thompson's very public declaration of loyalty to Princess Catherine, whispers of a deeper strategy began to swirl inside palace walls. Was his choice merely personal or part of a carefully designed succession map, orchestrated long before Queen Elizabeth's passing? As it turns out, the answer lies not in ceremonies, but in documents never meant for public eyes. A set of private letters, personal memos, and strategic directives quietly locked away in the Queen's private archives, only recently revealed to select insiders. Among them, a personal letter addressed to Catherine and a sealed directive to Jonathan Thompson. What they reveal rewrites everything we thought we knew about the transition of royal influence. Discovered by palace archivists cataloging Elizabeth's handwritten correspondences in early 2024, a memo marked with her distinctive Windsor seal read simply, "To Lieutenant Colonel J. Thompson, should the day arrive when duty leaves you without a sovereign, you are to act not with nostalgia, but with foresight. You will know where your loyalty belongs." Beneath it, in the Queen's own pen, "When the crown no longer weighs upon me, Guard the one who carries its meaning. This wasn't a command to serve the next monarch by blood or title. It was a strategic entrustment, a personal mission to protect not hierarchy, but heritage. Equally astonishing was a sealed, handwritten letter delivered to Catherine weeks after the Queen's funeral. Only a handful of people have read it in full, but palace sources familiar with its contents confirm its tone was intimate, affectionate, and unmistakably political. The Queen reportedly wrote, "Dearest Catherine, the world will look to the throne for stability, but they will look to you for grace. Do not shrink from that. You will not wear my crown, but you will carry my voice." Jonathan understands this. He will not just shield your body, he will shield your purpose. This letter wasn't just a gesture of comfort, it was a handover of intention. Weeks later, during Catherine's appearance at a military remembrance ceremony, royal watchers noticed a striking detail. She wore the sapphire clemency brooch, once reserved for Queen Elizabeth's most sensitive diplomatic events. This brooch was never formally passed down, and by tradition, it was reserved only for reigning sovereigns or widowed queens. Its appearance on Catherine's lapel was deliberate and unprecedented. Palace insiders suggest that the brooch was quietly gifted by the Queen herself, accompanied by a note that read, "Not every crown rests on velvet. Some rest on conscience." By wearing it to a military event, the very realm where Thompson now supports her daily, Catherine sent a coded message. She does not need the throne to hold royal authority. She wears a deeper mandate. The late Queen Elizabeth was renowned for her long-game thinking. In her later years, she built a shadow architecture beneath the monarchy, a structure of relationships, loyalties, and mentorships meant to survive beyond public transition. Rather than rely solely on titles, she empowered figures like Catherine through direct mentorship, emotional legitimacy, strategic allyship. Thompson, Lady Susan Hussey. This network, some insiders now call the Queen's Circle, was designed to counterbalance the formal hierarchy that elevated Camilla, but left many feeling disconnected from the Queen's moral legacy. What we're seeing now is not rebellion. It's execution of a silent plan. The brooch, the letter, the directive all point to a legacy transition away from bloodline loyalty. Catherine, once perceived as the dutiful Duchess, is now rising as the emissary of Elizabeth's values. Thompson, once an anonymous guard, is now the visible anchor of that legacy. Even the Queen's phrasing was designed to echo through history. Guard the one who carries its meaning. This wasn't sentimental poetry. It was constitutional philosophy handed down from one monarch to her chosen cultural heir. While King Charles III governs with constitutional authority and Queen Camilla assumes ceremonial duties, it is Princess Catherine who is quietly amassing legitimacy through loyalty. She commands the affection of the military. She inherits emotional credibility from the late Queen. She navigates the institution with both discipline and compassion. In every institution, especially one as ancient as the monarchy, symbols matter. And as Elizabeth II knew well, sometimes the most powerful crown is the one not worn, but witnessed. Catherine now wears that invisible crown. And Jonathan Thompson? He guards it not with a sword, but with a pledge sealed in ink and memory. Following the symbolic realignment of loyalty toward Princess Catherine, most publicly seen in the allegiance of Lieutenant Colonel Jonathan Thompson, and the quiet echoes of Queen Elizabeth's personal legacy, the palace has entered a new, more delicate phase of internal conflict. Queen Camilla has begun to push back, but unlike Catherine, who moves through understated gestures and earned loyalty, Camilla's method is orchestrated visibility, a calculated use of media channels, narrative control, and ally placement. In this installment, we explore how Camilla is leveraging public relations warfare to reassert dominance, and how her latest moves are reshaping the royal battlefield. The resurgence of Elizabethan symbolism around Catherine. Several prominent British tabloids ran curious, off-record briefings from senior royal sources. These included claims that Catherine was overstepping, acting as if she had a more central role than her official rank permitted. Suggestions that Lieutenant Colonel Thompson's shift was premature and unofficial. Hints that Camilla had been excluded from ceremonial decisions unfairly. The tone was subtle but undeniably antagonistic, framing Catherine as an ambitious operator, subtly undermining the Queen Consort. Insiders believe these leaks were greenlit by Camilla's communications team, working through long-established press relationships, dating back to her reinvention campaigns during the Diana-era scandal fallout. Camilla doesn't need to speak to the press, one royal correspondent remarked. She just needs to raise an eyebrow, and the phones start ringing. Camilla has also begun consolidating her position behind the scenes by leaning into establishment alliances. Longtime courtiers loyal to King Charles, who view Catherine's rising public image as a threat to monarchic continuity. Older members of the aristocracy, who still see Camilla as a symbol of Windsor restoration, especially among circles that viewed Diana's globalism as destabilizing. Tabloid editors and columnists who owe their careers to exclusive royal access, a currency Camilla still controls. These figures are now shaping a counter-narrative. Camilla is the calm, reliable matriarch, not glamorous, but seasoned. Catherine is beloved, yes, but inexperienced, and increasingly too visible for comfort. It's a political framing wrapped in etiquette, but at its core, it's about control. The royal realness is facing a generational media divide. On social media, Catherine and Thompson are unstoppable. Their interactions trend instantly. Fan pages, TikTok edits, and YouTube documentaries proliferate. On legacy press, The Times, The Daily Mail, The Telegraph, Camilla's framing still dominates. Briefings are treated as gospel. Her proximity to Charles gives her institutional legitimacy. Camilla's team is now actively pitching exclusive behind-the-scenes coverage, attempting to present her as the beating heart of the monarchy, especially in Charles's recent periods of reduced public appearances due to health. But young audiences aren't buying it. A viral comment on TikTok summed up the mood. "You can't spin loyalty. We see who earned it." Sources close to King Charles say he is deeply uncomfortable with the emerging tension, but is reluctant to interfere. While he publicly praises both women, his internal memos have quietly shifted ceremonial duties more toward Catherine. She now regularly leads hospital and education visits without royal accompaniment. Her solo appearances are coordinated directly with cabinet officials, bypassing Camilla's press office. She has been placed on the shortlist to represent the crown at upcoming Commonwealth gatherings, a role usually reserved for reigning monarchs or their consorts. This is a clear institutional signal, even if not publicly acknowledged. Camilla has taken note. Inside the palace, loyalties are shifting. Some aides have begun distancing themselves from Camilla's camp, not out of disdain, but out of career foresight. Younger staff see Catherine as the future. Former Elizabeth aides gravitate toward her values and tone. Even royal guards, once silent and neutral, are increasingly requesting assignments in Catherine's events. Jonathan Thompson's symbolic shift may have opened the floodgates. "He made it respectable to choose Catherine," said one former royal security officer. That changed everything. Camilla's countermoves have had one unintended effect. They've heightened public perception of conflict. The press is now framing every Catherine-Camilla appearance as a battlefield. Who smiled first? Who stood center in the photo? Who left the venue first? While the palace maintains that all is well, their carefully worded denials only fan the flames. And with Queen Elizabeth's legacy looming large, comparisons are unavoidable. Elizabeth built trust through quiet endurance. Camilla is seeking control through active media presence. Catherine is being cast not by decree, but by collective will as the natural extension of Elizabethan authority. After weeks of escalating tension, quiet power plays, and dueling narratives between Queen Camilla and Princess Catherine, Buckingham Palace did what it has done for centuries in times of internal turbulence. It closed its gates. According to multiple verified insiders, a confidential royal summit was convened inside the Green Drawing Room, historically reserved for moments of negotiation, succession discussion, or family intervention. Present were King Charles III, Queen Camilla, Princess Catherine, Prince William, Private Secretary Sir Clive Alderton, 2 senior aides representing royal protocol and communications, and, most strikingly, Lieutenant Colonel Jonathan Thompson, in full uniform. His presence confirmed what many suspected. This was not just a family conversation. This was a structural review of palace power and positioning. For Charles, the summit represented a painful intersection. His personal bond with Camilla, his lifelong partner, crowned by his side. His constitutional role to secure a monarchy that must outlive personalities. Camilla reportedly expressed frustration about being undermined by optics and sentiment, suggesting that her role as queen was being gradually eroded by public favoritism toward Catherine. She requested formal clarification of roles including event prioritization, staffing, and media strategy. Catherine, as expected, did not issue any accusations or counterclaims. Instead, she reportedly said, "I only do what the late queen taught me. If that casts a shadow, I will gladly step back." It was a masterstroke in tone simultaneously, respectful and disarming. It forced the room to examine not just facts, but feelings. Breaking decades of tradition, Lieutenant Colonel Jonathan Thompson was invited to speak. His message was described as short, resolute, and transformative. "My loyalty was sworn to Her Majesty Queen Elizabeth II. She asked me to protect not just her crown, but her vision. That vision now rests with the Princess of Wales. With all respect, I do not serve titles. I serve my legacy." The weight of that statement could not be overstated. It wasn't a rebellion, it was a declaration of custodianship. Sir Clive Alderton, ever the constitutional pragmatist, reportedly interjected, Perhaps the public has already made its choice. We are simply catching up. After hours of discussion, King Charles issued what aides are calling a measured but historic recalibration. Key decisions. Catherine will represent the Crown at the next Commonwealth Heads of Government meeting, CHOG, a role previously assumed by Queen Elizabeth herself. Lieutenant Colonel Jonathan Thompson will be permanently reassigned as Principal Royal Attaché to the Princess of Wales, a title custom created for the first time in palace history. Camilla will retain ceremonial prominence at state events, but will no longer control internal event staffing or press briefings, which will now be jointly overseen by a cross-house advisory council. In a symbolic gesture of unity, Charles reportedly ended the summit with a single phrase: "The monarchy survives not by picking favorites, but by recognizing who carries the flame." The very next day, a photo was released to the press. It showed Princess Catherine stepping out of a charity center for wounded veterans, flanked by Jonathan Thompson. She held a child's hand in one hand and a white folder in the other. The brooch, Queen Elizabeth's sapphire clemency, glinted quietly beneath her coat lapel. Camilla, by contrast, was photographed later that afternoon, leaving a private luncheon with two aristocratic friends. Her expression? Composed, but a step slower. Royal watchers immediately noted the choreography. Catherine is seen serving the people. Camilla is shown retreating into the private sphere. For those watching closely, it was the clearest signal yet of a shift in energy, perception, and destiny. Headlines poured in across the globe. The people's queen in waiting. The Guardian. Catherine steps up as palace reshapes future. The Times. Monarchy's new center of gravity. Le Figaro. Social media erupted in support. She didn't fight for the spotlight. The light followed her. Jonathan Thompson is proof that loyalty can't be reassigned. It must be earned. This is how a queen is chosen. Not by crown, but by conduct. Even foreign dignitaries released subtle praise for Catherine's poise and rising stature. Commonwealth leaders privately welcomed the announcement that she would take on Elizabeth's former role at CHOG. With the summit concluded, and roles redefined, the full architecture of Queen Elizabeth II's hidden succession plan has come into view. Soft power has prevailed over political proximity. Symbolism has outmaneuvered press control. Character, not entitlement, now defines the royal center. Catherine is not just the Princess of Wales. She is now the monarchy's moral core, a role the late Queen designed, protected, and passed down, not with ceremony, but with wisdom. And Thompson? He remains at her side not as a soldier following orders, but as a guardian of legacy.